The sky above the colony burned with a strange green light, reflecting off the metal walls of the human settlement. Smoke and dust mixed into a haze that made it hard to breathe. Cale ran through the chaos, his heart pounding but his legs felt like stone. He could hear the screams of his neighbors, the shouts of the alien guards, and above all, the sharp, cruel voice of the alien tribunal. His mother Mara was brought forward by two towering aliens. Their skin shimmered in colors humans could barely see, and their eyes glowed faintly with cold intelligence. She stood tall, but fear flickered in her eyes. Cale's stomach twisted. He had begged her to hide, to escape, but she had refused. "I will not leave you," she had whispered the night before, her hand gripping his. "Even if it costs me everything." The tribunal, a circle of aliens taller than any human, spoke in a language Cale could barely understand. Their words were harsh, but he understood enough. They had judged Mara guilty of supporting human resistance. She had helped others, small acts of kindness that the aliens saw as crimes. Cale's fists clenched. He wanted to charge forward, but the guards were too many, too fast. One wrong move and he would be crushed before he could reach her. Mara lifted her chin as the tribunal pronounced her sentence. Cale felt his chest tighten, a cold weight pressing down. The aliens moved with precision, their long arms catching her before she could resist. They dragged her to the center of the square, where a strange machine waited. Its metal arms glinted, and its core pulsed with a faint blue light. Cale didn't know exactly what it would do, but he could feel the danger. He wanted to scream. He wanted to rush forward and tear the aliens apart with his bare hands. But even as rage surged inside him, a sharper feeling grew, fear. Not for himself but for his mother. He had never felt so powerless in his life. The crowd of humans watched silently, some hiding behind walls, some frozen in shock. Cale noticed the young ones in the back hiding their faces. Their eyes reflected the terror he felt, and it made him angrier. He wanted to protect them, to show them that humans were not weak. But the moment was slipping away. The tribunal's leader stepped forward. Its voice was calm, almost serene, but every word carried the weight of death. Cale's ears strained, trying to catch the meaning, and then it was clear. They were going to execute her. Mara looked at Cale for a brief second. Her eyes were full of love, pride, and sorrow. "Cale," she whispered, though the alien's machines made her voice barely audible. "Do not forget who you are, be strong." Before he could move, the machine activated. A bright flash engulfed her form. Cale felt a heat, a shock, and then, nothing. His world turned gray. The screams around him blurred into a dull echo. His mother, the woman who had nurtured him, taught him to read, to think, to hope, was gone. Cale sank to his knees, choking on the dust, the tears blurring his vision. He felt numb, but the numbness did not last. Slowly it turned into a fierce, burning rage. He clenched his fists until his nails dug into his palms. The aliens had made a mistake. They had taken his mother, but they had not broken him. He stumbled through the ruins of the square, ignoring the bodies around him. Some were dead, some unconscious, some just too afraid to move. Cale's mind was already turning, thinking of ways to fight back. He remembered the old stories his mother had told him, stories of humans surviving impossible odds, of clever minds overcoming brute strength. Now those stories were not just tales. They were lessons he would use to survive. Cale found a small alley and hid behind a broken wall. He looked out at the tribunal soldiers as they left, satisfied with their work. But Cale noticed something they did not. Their arrogance, their belief that humans were weak, predictable, and easy to control. That belief would be their undoing. For hours, Cale stayed hidden, thinking, planning, imagining the ways he could turn the tables. He scavenged scraps of metal and wires, tools left behind by humans who had tried to resist before him. He studied the aliens from a distance, noting their patterns, how they moved, how they reacted. Every small detail mattered. Every observation was a step toward revenge. Night fell over the colony, and Cale finally returned to the place he had been hiding before the attack. A small, secret workshop, forgotten by the aliens. Here he began to assemble tools, weapons, and devices from scavenged parts. Sparks flew as he worked, the small flames reflecting in his determined eyes. He remembered his mother's words, "Strength is not only in the body but in the mind." Days passed, but Cale barely slept. He tested devices, modified them, imagined battle scenarios. He trained his body by climbing ruins, running through empty streets, lifting heavy debris. Each day he grew faster, smarter, stronger. The grief still ached, but it had become fuel. Fuel for the fire that burned inside him. He spoke to no one. Humans feared him, not understanding his purpose. But Cale did not need their approval. He had a mission now. The aliens had thought they could destroy him by destroying his mother. They had only made him stronger. Kale's first strike would not be today. It would come later, but when it came it would be precise, devastating, and unexpected. The humans around him would see that their fear was not final. The aliens would see that humans were not helpless. And Kale would remember, with every move, every plan, and every victory, that it had started here. With loss, with grief, with the execution of the woman who had given him life. As he looked up at the starry sky above the colony, Kale whispered to himself, a promise that no alien could ignore: I will make them pay. Every one of them. And I will survive. I will survive, for her. Kale had been hiding for days, moving silently through the ruins of his colony. The air still smelled of smoke and the echo of screams haunted his thoughts, but he pushed it aside. Grief had turned into a sharp edge, cutting through fear and doubt. Every alien soldier he had seen had become a target in his mind, every patrol a chance to strike. He was ready for his first move, small but deadly. He had watched the alien supply ships for hours from the shadows. Their routines were predictable, their guards confident, and their technology impressive but not perfect. Kale had studied the machines carefully, noting every pattern, every weak point. Humans were smaller and slower than the aliens, but they were clever. He had learned from his mother, from old stories, and from the ruins around him. Tonight he would prove it. Kale waited until the largest ship was stationary in the docking bay. Its engines hummed softly, sending vibrations through the metal floor. The guards patrolled in pairs, walking in a slow rhythm, their glowing eyes scanning the area but not noticing the shadow that moved along the walls. Kale held a small device in his hand, a combination of wires, scraps of metal, and old human technology. It was fragile but deadly. He had spent nights perfecting it, testing it in the darkness until it worked. He slipped past the first pair of guards, crawling on hands and knees along the shadows. His heart thumped, but his breathing was calm. He had to be quiet. One false move and everything would be over. Kale reached the ship's engine compartment. He crouched beside the access panel, studying the connections. He knew what to do. The device was not a bomb, but a disruptor. It would cause the engine to fail, sending the ship out of commission without killing the crew. Kale connected the wires carefully, his fingers steady. Sparks jumped from the device and he held his breath. The engine lights flickered, then dimmed. He waited, watching the panels, and finally the hum of the engine faltered and stopped. The ship shuddered slightly, its systems glitching. Kale smiled. One small strike and the aliens would be confused and angry. The humans who survived would see that they could fight back. He moved quickly, leaving the engine room and crawling back toward the shadows. One guard turned suddenly, his glowing eyes sweeping the area. Kale froze, pressing against the wall. The guard passed, unaware, and Kale exhaled slowly. He slipped out of the docking bay, unseen and unheard. His first strike was complete. The humans hiding in nearby ruins noticed the ship's lights dim and whispered among themselves. Rumors would spread quickly. A human did this, they said. A human struck first. Kale did not need their praise, but the thought made him feel stronger. Humans were small, but they had courage and they had clever minds. That was enough. Kale did not rest. He knew the aliens would hunt him now. They would search every ruin, check every shadow, and question every human. He had to be faster, smarter, and more careful. He moved from building to building, observing the alien patrols, noting changes in their routines. Every day brought new information, and every night he tested new ways to disrupt them. One night, Kale found an abandoned human warehouse filled with old tools and machines. He worked there in secret, assembling more devices, small weapons, and traps. He practiced with makeshift targets, testing his aim, his timing, his speed. Each day he became more precise, more dangerous. His body grew stronger from climbing rubble, running through alleys, and lifting heavy debris. He felt his mother's presence in his determination. She had always believed in human strength, in cleverness over brute force. He would honor her memory with every strike. Kale also began to understand the aliens better. They relied on strict commands, predictable patrols, and confidence in their superiority. They had never faced humans like him before, humans who could think ahead, adapt quickly, and use the environment to their advantage. Kale realized that fear could be a weapon. If he could make the aliens doubt themselves, he could turn their strength into weakness. One evening he set another trap, this time for a small alien supply convoy. He used smoke, mirrors, and sound devices he had built. When the aliens approached, they were confused, unsure of where to go, their sensors tricked. Kale watched from a hidden rooftop as they stumbled and retreated. It was a small victory, but every victory mattered. It proved that humans could fight back, that the aliens were not invincible. Kale knew he could not do this forever alone. Humans needed hope, a leader who could show them the way. But first he had to survive, sharpen his skills, and prove that even a single human could strike fear into the hearts of the aliens. He spent nights thinking, planning, and imagining the battles ahead. Every patrol he watched, every machine he studied, every map he drew added to his knowledge. The colony was still dangerous, full of alien soldiers and fear. But Kale had begun to change it. Small acts of sabotage, carefully planned attacks, and clever tricks were spreading panic among the invaders. They would learn soon that humans were not weak, that a single determined human could destroy their machines and challenge their control. As he climbed to the top of a ruined building, Kale looked at the stars above. They were cold and distant, but they reminded him of the promise he had made. He would grow stronger. He would strike again and again. He would not stop until the aliens felt the power of human courage, intelligence, and determination. The night was quiet now, but Kale's mind was full of plans. He would not waste a single moment. His first strike was only the beginning. Soon the aliens would know fear. And when that time came, they would remember the human who had survived loss, who had turned grief into fire, who had begun the fight for humanity's place in the galaxy. Kale whispered to himself as he prepared for another night of training and planning, "They took my mother, but I will take everything from them. I will show them humans are not weak. I will strike, and they will fall." Kale moved quietly through the dark streets of the ruined colony. The alien patrols were still searching, but their confidence had weakened. His strikes had begun to make them nervous. Smoke from sabotaged supply ships still drifted through the air, and whispers among hidden humans spoke of a single human who could outsmart the invaders. Kale's first victories had given hope, but he knew one human alone could not win. He needed allies, humans who were willing to fight, willing to learn, and willing to believe. He began with the survivors he had seen hiding in the shadows. Some were terrified, too scared to leave their hiding places. Others were angry but without direction. Kale approached slowly, his presence quiet but commanding. He showed them the small victories he had achieved, the damaged alien ships, the disrupted patrols, the chaos he had caused among the aliens. His eyes burned with determination, and the humans began to listen. "Humans can fight back," Kale said, his voice steady. "We are smaller, yes, but we are clever. We can use their strength against them. If we work together, we can survive. We can win." The first few were skeptical. One man, older and wary, shook his head. "They are too strong. We are too weak." "You're just one boy," he said. Kale looked him in the eye. "Strength is not just size," he replied. "It is courage and it is thinking. Watch and you will see what a human can do." Kale took them to a hidden warehouse he had discovered. Inside it was filled with scraps, old tools, and parts of machines. He showed the humans how to create simple traps, distractions, and weapons from the items around them. He taught them to move quietly, to observe the aliens, and to use their surroundings. At first they struggled, fumbling with the devices, unsure of themselves. Kale was patient. He corrected their mistakes, showed them small successes, and praised them when they did something clever. Days passed and the humans began to change. Fear still lingered in their eyes, but it was no longer the same paralyzing fear that had held them before. They started to believe. They began watching patrols, learning patterns, and helping Kale plan small strikes. Together, they sabotaged alien supply lines, disrupted communications, and freed a few captured humans. Each success, no matter how small, made the group stronger. Kale also taught them something more important than weapons or traps: strategy. The aliens were strong but predictable. They relied on commands, routines, and confidence in their superiority. Kale showed the humans how to exploit this, how to be unpredictable, and how to make the aliens doubt themselves. Humans were not fast or strong, but they could be smart, clever, and united. One night, Kale led a small team to a supply depot. The aliens had stored food and medicine there, and a patrol always passed by at the same time. Kale had watched the patrol for days, memorized every movement. The humans were nervous, but Kale guided them. They moved in silence, placed their traps, and waited. When the patrol approached, the devices triggered. Smoke, noise, and confusion erupted. The aliens stumbled, shouted, and tried to regain control. Kale and his team moved quickly, collecting supplies and slipping away before the aliens could organize. Back in the warehouse, the humans celebrated quietly. They were not used to victory, but tonight they had tasted it. Kale smiled at them, feeling pride he had not allowed himself before. "This is only the beginning," he said. "We fight together. We strike smart. And we will survive." As the days turned into weeks, more humans joined Kale. Some had been hiding on distant streets, some had escaped alien capture, and some had lost everything. They all brought different skills, some were strong, some clever, some quick. Kale taught each of them to use their talents. The group grew, small but disciplined, a force that began to challenge the alien occupation in ways the invaders had not expected. The aliens noticed the change. They could not understand it. Humans were supposed to be weak, fearful, and disorganized. Now, patrols were disrupted more often, supplies disappeared, and whispers of a human leader spread among their ranks. Confusion and anger grew. Kale had become more than a fighter. He had become a symbol. Kale's leadership was not built on fear but on trust. He listened to his people, valued their ideas, and encouraged them to think. Every small success was a lesson, every mistake a chance to improve. The humans began to believe not only in Kale but in themselves. They were no longer just survivors, they were fighters, clever and determined. One evening, Kale climbed to the roof of the warehouse and looked at the colony below. Smoke from recent sabotage drifted into the sky, and alien patrols moved cautiously, unsure of what they would find. The humans in the streets whispered, hiding and watching. They were learning. They were preparing. And soon they would fight not just for survival but for freedom. Kale felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. His first strikes had brought attention, but now he had to guide humans to do more. He knew the aliens would not stop their search and the risks were higher. But he also knew that humans, united and clever, could outthink any alien. He had seen it in the shadows, in the traps, in the quick strikes that had made patrols retreat. Humans could be strong in ways the aliens had never expected. That night, Kale whispered to the humans gathered around him, "We fight because we must. We fight because we are clever, brave, and united. And one day we will show the aliens that humans are not weak. We will show them that every strike matters and every human can make a difference." The humans nodded, their faces tired but determined. They had started as scared survivors, but under Kale's guidance, they had become something else. Something the aliens could not understand, something they had not predicted. Humans who could fight smart, strike fast, and survive against impossible odds. Kale looked at the stars above, remembering his mother's words about strength and courage. He knew she would be proud. Her death had started this journey, but it had also shown him the way. Grief had turned into fire, fear into cleverness, and loss into determination. The humans he rallied were just the beginning. Together they would grow stronger, and the aliens would soon learn that underestimating humans was a fatal mistake. And so, in the dark streets and hidden warehouses of the ruined colony, a human rebellion was born. Small, careful, and clever, but growing with every passing day. Kale led them with patience, courage, and intelligence, knowing that every small victory would bring them closer to freedom and revenge. The humans were learning, and the aliens had not yet seen the full force of their determination. Kale and his small army of humans moved silently through the ruined outskirts of the alien city. The patrols were lighter tonight, but the danger was greater. They were close to the alien stronghold, the place where Kale believed the commander responsible for his mother's death was stationed. The humans were tense, but Kale's calm presence steadied them. He had trained them well. They knew the risks, but they also knew that clever planning and courage could turn the tide. The stronghold loomed ahead, a massive structure of dark metal and glowing panels. Alien guards patrolled its perimeter in pairs, moving in strict, precise patterns. Kale crouched behind a pile of rubble, studying the patrols. He whispered instructions to his team, pointing out weak spots, escape routes, and timing. Every movement had to be perfect. One mistake could cost all their lives. Kale's heart beat faster, but his mind was clear. He remembered his mother, the day she was taken, and the fire it had ignited inside him. That fire was stronger now. He would not allow fear to control him or his people. Every human with him was part of a plan, and Kale trusted them. They had trained, adapted, and survived together. Tonight they would strike. The humans split into small groups, moving like shadows. Smoke bombs, mirrors, and sound devices created distractions, confusing the guards. Patrols stumbled, weapons raised but unsure where danger lay. Kale's team slipped past them, silent and precise, making their way toward the inner gates. Inside, alarms blared faintly, but the humans had expected this. Kale had already prepared pathways to move undetected. They reached the central chamber, the heart of the stronghold. Inside, the alien commander sat on a high platform, tall and imposing, its eyes glowing with authority. It had sensed the disturbances outside but believed humans could not breach this area. That belief would cost it. Kale's small team fanned out, activating traps and devices that disrupted the alien systems. Lights flickered, floors vibrated, and automated defenses misfired. The commander's surprise was obvious. Kale stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the commander. He was alone for this part. The humans stayed behind to secure exits and control points. The commander laughed, a deep, resonant sound that echoed through the chamber. "A human," it said, "thinks it can challenge me?" Kale did not answer. He had no words for arrogance, only action. He had studied this alien's movements, its habits, and its reliance on predictable patterns. Every strike he made was precise, exploiting its weaknesses. The commander lunged with its long arms, striking with speed and strength, but Kale dodged, rolling and moving with agility humans often had in abundance. He struck back with small, powerful blows, hitting pressure points he had observed during earlier scouting missions. The battle was brutal. Sparks flew from clashing weapons, alarms screamed, and the humans outside kept the rest of the stronghold distracted. Kale felt every strike, every dodge, testing his strength and endurance. He could see the commander growing frustrated, unsure, and impatient. It had underestimated him. That mistake would be its downfall. Kale jumped onto a raised platform, using momentum to avoid a sweeping strike. He landed behind the commander and activated a device that emitted a high-pitched pulse, disrupting the alien's balance. The commander staggered, and Kale pressed the advantage, striking with his hands and small weapons he had prepared. Every move was calculated. Every action had purpose. Finally, with a well-timed leap and a precise strike, Kale brought the commander down. Its glowing eyes flickered, confusion and shock mixing with pain. Humans outside cheered quietly, seeing the alien leader fall. The stronghold's defenses faltered, and Kale's team quickly moved in, taking control of key points. The remaining aliens were disoriented, unsure of how to respond. Humans had broken their rhythm, and fear spread among them. Kale stood over the fallen commander, breathing hard, blood and sweat mixing on his face. He felt the weight of the battle but also the satisfaction of victory. This was not just revenge for his mother. It was proof that humans, small and underestimated, could fight and win against seemingly invincible foes. His team joined him, their faces tired but triumphant. They had seen firsthand that humans were clever, courageous, and capable of great feats. The stronghold was now in human hands, at least for the moment. Kale moved through the corridors, checking for survivors, freeing captives, and securing supplies. Every human freed was a victory, a sign that hope could grow even in the darkest places. The humans celebrated quietly, but Kale knew this was only a step. The fight was far from over. The aliens would regroup, but now they had seen the truth. Humans were not weak, and one human could change everything. Kale looked around the stronghold, his eyes resting on the alien insignias and the cold technology. He thought of his mother and whispered a promise to her memory. "I will not stop. I will not rest. Humans will survive. And we will make them pay for what they did." That night, Kale and his team set up defenses in the stronghold, preparing for any counterattack. The humans were tired, but determination shone in their eyes. They had fought together, survived together, and proven themselves capable. Kale moved among them, giving words of encouragement, adjusting plans, and teaching lessons learned from the battle. The alien command structure had been shaken, their confidence broken. Patrols would now be more cautious, slower, and fearful. Humans had gained the advantage not through brute strength, but through intelligence, strategy, and courage. Kale had shown them how to use every tool, every shadow, and every weakness to their benefit. As the stars shone above the stronghold, Kale gazed out at the horizon. The humans he had trained, the victories they had achieved, and the battles still to come filled his mind. He knew the fight would continue and that it would be brutal. But humans had proven that they could endure, outthink, and triumph. And Kale, fueled by loss and determination, would lead them every step of the way. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were fighters. And the aliens would never forget that lesson. The sun rose over the ruined colony, casting long shadows across the alien stronghold that humans now controlled. Kale stood at the top of a battered wall, looking down at the people he had led. They were tired, scratched, and bruised, but their eyes shone with hope. For the first time in years, humans were not running, hiding, or fearing every alien patrol. They were standing tall. The victory at the stronghold had changed everything. Aliens in the region were confused and wary, unsure of how humans had gained the advantage. Kale had struck smart, showing them that humans were not predictable, not weak, and not easily defeated. Rumors of his leadership had spread to nearby colonies. Humans whispered about him, inspired by what they had heard and what they had seen. They began to rise from their hiding places, ready to join the fight, ready to reclaim their homes. Kale moved through the streets with his small team, helping humans carry supplies, repair buildings, and organize defenses. Each act of kindness and leadership strengthened their morale. The humans trusted him not because he was the strongest, but because he had proven that one human with courage and intelligence could make a difference. Kale knew that the fight was not over. The aliens would come back, but humans had learned something important. Together they were clever, brave, and unstoppable. He met with his commanders, people he had trained during the raids and skirmishes. They were ready to expand their influence, freeing other captured humans, sabotaging alien operations, and taking back more territory. Kale listened to their ideas, offered suggestions, and planned carefully. Every move was deliberate. Every plan used the strengths of humans: speed, cunning, adaptability. Aliens relied on power and order, but humans thrived in chaos, improvisation, and thinking ahead. Kale's thoughts returned to his mother, Mara. Her memory had been his fuel, his guide. Every victory, every clever strike, and every freed human was in her honor. Her death had been brutal, but it had sparked something the aliens could not control: a human uprising, led by one who refused to be defeated. Kale felt her presence in every human who stood taller, who smiled with hope, who dared to fight. In the following weeks, humans began to take control of key alien installations. Supply lines were cut, patrols were disrupted, and alien outposts were overtaken. Humans no longer hid. They acted boldly, striking when least expected and retreating when necessary. The aliens were forced to rethink their assumptions. They had thought humans were weak, slow, and easy to control. Now they learned that humans could adapt, learn, and even outsmart them. Kale led a mission to a major alien command center. The humans moved like shadows, silent and precise. Every trap, every diversion, every small device Kale had designed worked perfectly. The aliens were caught off guard. They tried to fight back, but human ingenuity and coordination overwhelmed them. By the time the sun set, humans had taken control. They freed prisoners, secured weapons, and sent a clear message: humanity was rising. The humans celebrated quietly that night, sharing stories, laughter, and tears. Kale walked among them, smiling but also observing. He knew they had grown stronger, but there were still lessons to teach, skills to sharpen, and confidence to build. He encouraged them, praising cleverness over strength, patience over recklessness, and teamwork over individual glory. Humans were learning that survival was not enough. They could thrive. As weeks turned into months, Kale's leadership spread to other colonies. Humans who had never fought before now trained in his methods. They used simple tools, traps, and clever strategies to defend their homes and challenge alien control. Kale had proven that human intelligence, courage, and unity could win battles that seemed impossible. The aliens could no longer underestimate them. One day, Kale stood on a hill overlooking the main city. Smoke from recent skirmishes rose in the distance, but the humans below were organized and ready. Children played safely among the ruins. Adults worked together to repair buildings and fortify defenses. Life was returning, stronger than before. Kale felt a deep sense of pride. The humans he had rallied were no longer weak or frightened. They were survivors, warriors, and thinkers. They were a people ready to claim their place in the galaxy. He turned to his closest team members and said, "We started with nothing. They thought we were weak. But look at them now. Humans are clever, brave, and united. And we will not stop until every human colony is free. They will remember us and they will respect us. We are no longer prey. We are a force." The humans cheered, their voices rising in the early morning air. Kale's heart swelled, not with pride alone, but with hope. The brutal loss of his mother had started this journey, but the human spirit had grown stronger because of it. Humans had survived, adapted, and risen, proving that even the smallest, most underestimated beings could challenge giants. Kale looked to the stars, remembering the first time he had promised revenge. Now, the promise had become something greater. Not only had he struck back, but he had inspired a people to believe in themselves. Humanity had risen from loss, grief, and fear. They had learned to fight smart, to strike fast, and to survive with courage. The aliens would eventually return, but they would face something they had never faced before. Humans who would not be controlled, who would not be broken, and who would fight with intelligence, courage, and unity. Kale knew the battles ahead would be difficult, but he also knew that humanity had discovered its true strength. He whispered quietly to himself, thinking of Mara, of the humans who had joined him, and of the future: "We will survive. We will rise. And no one will ever underestimate humans again." From the ruins of a shattered colony, humanity's light shone bright. Small, clever, and determined, they had proven their place in the galaxy. Kale had turned loss into fire, grief into courage, and fear into action. The humans had risen, stronger than ever, ready to face any challenge, and to show the universe that they were no longer weak.